So I'm Jennifer. I'm a CSA member. I am the website Opportunity Section Manager since October. And today we're talking to Denise Green, the 2010 recipient of the CSA Stella Blum Research Grant Award. And it's just a current CSA student member working in the field of North American costume. So Denise has just presented, and for people that weren't here, if you could just give us a brief summary of what we talked about.
My name's Denise Green, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of British Columbia. I did my undergrad at Cornell in fiber science and apparel design, and my master's at UC Davis in textiles. So my background is in textiles and costume, and I got involved in the Costume Society when I was in an undergrad. I went to a regional meeting and presented on some research I was doing with one of my professors, and have been involved in the organization since then. I'm now working on my PhD, and I submitted an application for the Stella Blum Research Grant in 2010, and that came out of my work that I was starting to do. I'm studying anthropology at UBC, and I was working on the west coast of Vancouver Island with the Nuu-chah-nulth First Nation. I'd been helping out with an exhibition of ceremonial curtains, which are large-scale textiles. They're called recipient, and they display families' rights and histories, responsibilities, those sorts of things. They're very large-scale textiles. And in working on that exhibition and spending time on the West Coast, I became interested in ceremonial regalia. So when so in 2010, in May of that year, after attending a few different potlatches and different events and seeing these garments in use, and just seeing the diversity in the way that they were made, the materials they were made out of, the imagery on them, I wanted to learn more about those garments and understand the history of them. So I made an application, and the research study follows the changes in materials, designs, construction methods of Nuu-chah-nulth ceremonial regalia starting in 1778 with the arrival of Captain James Cook on Vancouver Island. And I look at the collections that he made, which are at the British Museum, mostly. They're also in some other places. And then I also traveled to the Ethnological Museum in Berlin to look at collections that were made in the 1880s, the Smithsonian, National Museum of Natural History to look at collections from the 1860s to 1920s, National Museum of the American Indian, Peabody Harvard, Peabody Essex Museum, Canadian Museum of Civilization, Carl May Museum in Radiville. Went to all these different collections. The materials from the West Coast are very spread out in these different places. So I traveled, with the grant money, I was able to travel to these museums and archives and piece together a history of these garments and how they've changed and how those changes relate to what was going on at the time, the context in this period of colonial interaction. And that's what I talked about. And in talking about that, also looking at the way that these garments reveal intersecting identity variables such as age and generation, class, gender, things like that, how we can learn about cultural practices and social organization through the garments that people are wearing at these ceremonies called potlatching, or called the potlatch, which comes from the Nuu-chah-nulth word pachit, which means to give away.
Very exciting. So is this your first symposium where you presented?
No, this is my second symposium. I did my master's thesis at UC Davis with Dr. Susan Kaiser, and I looked at another kind of economic system to do with dress. The potlatch system is a prestige economy, very much influences the way people dress. But in my master's thesis, I was looking at another kind of gift-giving economy, which took place at the Burning Man Festival in northwestern Nevada. And that's a festival that happens each year in the Nevada desert, and people come together and wear costumes and try and live in this uninhibited way. And one of the ways that they do that and try and express themselves is through garments and dress and costume. So my first presentation at CSA was about that topic, in particular how men were able to experiment with different notions of masculinity through dress at the Burning Man Festival. And then I just recently published that paper in Dress. That was the last issue of Dress.
Yeah, on the cover too.
Yeah. So that was my first conference. And then I went to a regional symposium when I was an undergrad, and I presented a paper that I worked on with Dr. Charlotte Jarusek, and it was about a street fashion collection that we made for the Cornell Costume Collection, and Jenna and I used to work together in the costume collection show, so she knows all about that project.
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
So will we see you in Vegas next year?
I certainly hope so.
Okay.
I certainly hope so.
Well, it's nice to see you, and thank you for sharing everything with everyone.